Well, fellas, just like that, we are staring down week one. I cannot believe it. No more. We say this every year. No more preseason. No more games. No more outliers. Just straight football Thursday night with a spectacular game. I feel like, Caleb, am I wrong? But isn't there always like this high stakes game in week one? This week it's Dallas visiting Philadelphia. As high stakes as it is, Philadelphia 7.5 point favorite. Caleb, am I reading this right?
I mean, it's pretty close, I think. I don't know if it's going to be 7.5. It might be a little less. It's usually pretty close for this team. It's in Philly, so it could be more leaning towards Philly, as people are betting that it will be. But usually it's like a Super Bowl rematch, a Super Bowl team that is usually the opening week. But now this rivalry is definitely going to be heated. This division's wide open. We think so. We talked about it a little bit last week. But, man, I'm a little optimistic.
A little. I mean, you got to explain that, because I don't know if I'm feeling that at all. But
I feel like, I can unpack this a little bit if you want me to. I mean, since I've been alive, at least through the Romo era, the Jason Garrett era, Dallas has always been a little top heavy. Like, they usually have one receiver and a quarterback, obviously, but their defense has been decent. Now I feel like Dallas doesn't have the pressure of, how do I word this? There's no pressure. People are saying that Dallas is third or fourth in the division this year, which is interesting. They finally have 2 wide receiver ones, in my opinion. They have a committee running back situation, as you see. All of the Super Bowl teams of the past have that situation. Yeah, there's not one guy that opposing coaches have to plan for. That's kind of a wild card week to week. The defense, I feel like, is less drama now that that situation is taken care of. And everyone's healthy except for 2 or 3 people, Overshown and one of the other reserve linebackers. So I'm optimistic. It's healthy. The offense is it's a lot better than it was, in my opinion. But we can talk about that as the season goes on, and we'll see it on Thursday. So,
Tim, be the voice of reason for us, as you often are. Is there reason for Cowboy fans to be optimistic in a 7-point dogs?
I agree with Caleb. I agree. I actually think, this is one of the few seasons, especially the last week or two, everyone's dumping on the Cowboys. And I think the expectation is the Cowboys are just going to get rocked in this game because, it's the Eagles, and Cowboys are just going to lay down because they've had a bad week of PR. And, but you're right, Caleb, like the expectations just aren't there. And they have a really stacked and balanced team. I think it's a much closer game. And honestly, I think I would say this: if the game was in Dallas, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Dallas pulled off the upset. I really wouldn't. I don't think Dallas is a better team, but I do think because it's in Philly, I think Philly's the better team. I think Philly winds up winning the game. But I think as we talked on last week's show, I think the gap has been really narrow between among those 4 teams in that division. It's a lot closer.
Yeah. And Josh, one thing, you especially are great at keeping me up to date on things that happened last year. Of course, Saquon Barkley was newsworthy, was all world last year for the Philadelphia Eagles. This year, Dallas has made some moves, including what I think is one of the better wide receiver duos in the NFL. Would you be all right giving us some updates on how this goes from a matchup perspective, since the depth charts for Dallas has changed, obviously, since last week?
Yeah, depth chart wise, like you said, there's now Lamb and Pickens as the duo there in the Dallas Cowboys. That duo is the second duo this year, or going into this year, outside of Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, to be a receiving core with 2 receivers that have put up 2,000 yards combined the last 2 seasons. So 1,000-yard average the last 2 seasons. They're one of 2 receiving cores to do that now with George Pickens. And you mentioned Saquon Barkley joining the Eagles last year. Javonte Williams now named the RB1 on the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously a change there. They're among the bottom in the NFL in rushing with Rico Dowdle. No disrespect to him, but it was very confusing what they were doing. They didn't really add anybody. They didn't add anyone through the draft last year. So now they obviously have names: Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, Miles Sanders there. And then something on week 1 itself. If you look at Super Bowl champions going into week 1 the next year. So, for example, Philadelphia Eagles won last year. So going into this year, looking at those types of teams since 2011, or the last 20 years, let's go. Those Super Bowl defending champions in week 1 are 15-5. And you look at the type of losses that are there, the 5 losses. It's the 2011 Giants going into 2012. obviously a wild card Super Bowl team that beat Tom Brady. Next, the Ravens the next season, where their defense essentially retired with all those big Hall of Fame names. You look at the 2016 Patriots, they lost, and they lost to Alex Smith and on the Chiefs, where he was quarterback 3 that season, and they were transitioning then to Pat Mahomes, where the Chiefs really started picking up. Then you have the Rams with Matthew Stafford getting hurt in 2021 to 2022, and then the Chiefs losing to the Lions, emerging with Ben Johnson just 2 years ago. So you really see emerging teams that are top teams taking over and winning week 1 against those Super Bowl defending champions, or it's the Giants and the Ravens losing their defense. So it's really gone to how it's supposed to in week 1 with these Super Bowl defending champions. It's generally a win for them unless they've had a big change or there's a giant emerging team to take over and beat them.
Yeah, I look at the division like I think you guys have all said, and I do think there are better teams than others for sure. And Caleb, I like your especially being a Cowboys fan. Many seasons we start the season with way too much hype. People just talk about us. Nobody's outside of the Micah Parsons trade and Jerry Jones. No one's really talking about us, which is a little comforting, I think, going into week 1. And we have lots of other teams to talk about. We are going to do locks and upsets as we always do. So stand by. We'll get into that as we move on. Interesting game on Friday night. Of course, that's the Thursday night game kicking us off. Kansas City is considered to be visiting LA, even though they're leaving the country, and Kansas City are 3-point favorites. Let's unpack this one a little bit. Josh, you mentioned some player updates. There's been some significant change, I think, on the Chargers offense, especially in the backfield. Can you update us on some of the Charger changes?
Yeah, and so we're talking about Omarion Hampton, now the lead back for the LA Chargers. He was drafted in the first round. We know this offense with Greg Roman is generally one that splits the carries pretty evenly in that running back room. So last year you had J.K. Dobbins. He got 49.95% of the snaps toting the football there. Obviously, that's half. And then they split between Gus Edwards and a few other guys, Hassan Haskins, on that team. And so we can expect with Najee Harris being an upgrade over Gus Edwards and Omarion Hampton being a rookie, yes, he's the RB1 on the team, but it's probably going to be an even split there between those two guys, as they obviously love running the football. So you have him and then Trey Harris, their second-round receiver, slotted in as one of their outside starters as of now.
Yeah, and Caleb, this is a little unorthodox for the first week of the season, I think, to be out of the country. What are your thoughts in regards to a matchup outside of the country?
I'm weird. I'd rather it be here, especially it be in LA or Kansas City for this game. I think it's a little weird for the players. It's a little weird for the fans overall. I think the game's on YouTube too, which is weird for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think as the game goes, I think it's a coin flip. I think obviously it's leaning towards Andy Reid and the Chiefs. There's no home field advantage, like you said. And I think that Harbaugh and Reid, it's 3-2 leaning Reid in their competition. So Reid, I don't know if it's the better team for the Chiefs or the Chargers. I think it's competitive. I personally think it's a coin flip. But both offenses should be high-powered. Both defenses are very good. The Chargers had one of the best turnarounds in defenses last year, from almost dead last to middle of the season. Go ahead, Josh.
Can I mention, you're talking about their defense, the Chargers allowed the least amount of points defensively last year. They were ranked number 1. Of course, they measure a defense and offense by yards. So yardage-wise, they were 11th, but they allowed the least amount of points defensively. Chargers.
Yeah, and it was the biggest jump in the defense as far as production goes. Yeah. So, and Mahomes, we've seen him last year struggle. He struggled with injuries, minor injuries, and also just struggling in general, not having enough receivers on his team. I think the lack of receivers could show up in this game, especially with Rashee Rice being suspended, Hollywood coming back off injury, and then Worthy being their number 1 receiver right now, and the whole Travis Kelce debacle. We don't really know how their offense is going to look, but it is Patrick Mahomes, and it is Andy Reid, so it's going to be competitive. I'm hoping for a good game.
Tim, what are your thoughts on the Kelce debacle?
Well, I don't have too many thoughts on the Kelce debacle. Looking at the schedule this week, I've got 3 games that I kind of marked down as like what I would call gap games, where to see if these teams can close the gap from where they've been historically. So, for instance, this is one of them. I see Kansas City for the last 5 or 10 years has just owned this division. I'm curious to see, have the Chargers close that gap? The other 2 we'll talk about later, but I want to see the Giants Washington to see how much of a gap there is there. And then Chicago, have they closed that gap on Minnesota? But for this game in particular, I'm very curious just to see what, like Josh said, their defense was phenomenal last year. They really, under Harbaugh, they turned things around. I don't think this is the same old Chargers. Maybe not, though. But I think they, in my opinion, I think they have closed the gap. And there's a lot of these games that Kansas City was able to pull off late last year.
Yeah.
And I hate saying luck, because then all the Chiefs fans will come at us and say, "You called my team lucky. How do you?" No, there is luck in football. I think we could all agree to that. But when some of the luck doesn't break their way, and you have a team that's really good like the Chargers, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Chargers won this game.
Yeah. Caleb mentioned the receiving core for the Chiefs. Obviously, Rashee Rice is out for 6 games now to start off the season. And he was, as we look at the season that Xavier Worthy had, he didn't have a single 80-yard receiving game during the regular season. He didn't have any 100-yard receiving games, obviously, until the Super Bowl, where he got 100 yards towards that tail end where they were already losing that game. And they were kind of just chucking it up with big plays and big hopes to catch up to the Eagles there. But he steps in as the wide receiver 1. Rashee Rice last year had 2 100-yard games to start off the season, and I believe an 85-yarder in between those two. So there's no question he's their number 1 receiver. He has the slot role for them. He's going to get a ton of targets. And so we really don't know what it looks like with Hollywood coming back from injury. Juju kind of filling in and out of that team the last couple of years. And then Xavier Worthy has not produced at a number 1 level at all. And so it's going to be, once again, like Tim said, this defense has completely flipped, and they're a much closer team than teams probably want to acknowledge, with Mahomes not really being a top-level quarterback statistically the last couple of years. We know his talent, we know his upside, but there's nothing pointing towards this being an easy win for them at all.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the interesting thing, I think Caleb touched on it as well, this isn't really a home game for anybody, even though I would think if you're going to have to travel a long way away, it's probably better to get it out of the way than do it in the middle of the week, because we all know how those long and short stretches, hurt the teams. Well, that's the Thursday and Friday matchups. We have a obviously full slate of games. Let's start with the next one up. Las Vegas is visiting the New England Patriots. Patriots being favored by 2.5 currently. We've talked about Vrabel a little bit before. This game is going to look quite different for a Raider-New England matchup. How so?
Yeah, new coaches, new a lot. There's a lot going on there. This is not the same old Patriots. It's not the same old Raiders. This is honestly, there's a lot of games we could pick as far as game of the week that are kind of the low hanging fruit that are so easy to pick. This is one of those sneaky good games that I'm incredibly intrigued by, because I think one of these teams is going to make us early on that they could be for real. We said this last week. I don't know that Las Vegas, they're not winning the division, I don't think, but I think they're going to be a problem for a lot of teams. And I don't know any Mike Vrabel team that's ever gone and just laid down. So I think New England's also going to be a problem. And so these two teams battling at each other, oh man, it's good. I love it. I think it's one of my favorite matchups of week 1.
Yeah, I would agree. Caleb, your take on the matchup?
Yeah, we get to see new coaches, as you said. Geno Smith has been solid ever since Pete Carroll pulled him out of the grave. We get to see both high-end rookie running backs in Genty and Henderson face off in this game.
Yep.
New O-lines, solid defenses. It's going to be a defensive game, I think. I don't know if it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be close. I think a lot of kicks. Daniel Carlson might be the MVP of this game. So I'm excited.
Josh?
Yeah, offensively, obviously, these teams are changed. From the previous season, we had Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, I believe, starting for Las Vegas last season. Now we have Geno Smith. Now we have Pete Carroll, like everybody knows. Caleb just mentioned the running backs for these two teams. But now they have Dante Thornton starting on the outside, Amari Cooper sliding in wherever. Right now he's in a reserve role because he hasn't really practiced with them. And then for the offenses last season, kind of just to view what they were doing last season, the Patriots and the Raiders were bottom 6 and bottom 5, respectively, in yards and points scored. So this is a bottom half of the league, a bottom quarter of the league offense from both sides. And so we really don't know what to expect there. Defensively, middle of the pack for the Raiders, and then lower end for the Patriots. But the Patriots did have games last year where they were holding teams to under 20 points. So there's a lot of other games that factor into them being lower scored there. But they added a lot of veterans everywhere. So there's not a fair comparison to have for these teams going into this new year with 2 new coaches, 2 new quarterbacks, 2 new everything for them.
2 new schemes, 2 new rookie running backs, as you said. I agree. So far, all 3 games, even though there's a lot of difference in what Vegas is saying the lines look like, all these games so far, to me, look very intriguing in the 1 o'clock game. All right, another 1 o'clock game on the East Coast. Pittsburgh Steelers are visiting the New York Jets, the new Josh quarterback for both. In fact, Justin Fields, who started the season last year for Pittsburgh, now starting for the Jets. New coach in New York, same old coach in Pittsburgh. Josh, tell us some differences. You mentioned Najee Harris is no longer running the football. What are some other differences on the depth chart for Pittsburgh starting this season?
Yeah, so as we know, Najee Harris is gone. They drafted Caleb Johnson you would assume, to eventually start for them. But right now, they slotted him in as RB3 on the team. So you have Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles is there as their number 2. And the Caleb Johnson eventually, once again, you assume would take over as the in-between tackles guy, number 1 back there. But they have DK Metcalf as the number 1 receiver. They're going to be running a ton of 2 tight end sets with what Arthur Smith has done on the Falcons and the Titans, but obviously Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith. And then for the Jets, you have Justin Fields, not tons of receiver help for him there, obviously. Garrett Wilson, they just announced Josh Reynolds as their number 2 receiver. And then rookie Mason Taylor is their starting tight end. So a lot of question marks for both these guys. But of course, we've seen these quarterbacks play. We've seen these other offensive weapons play other than really Jalen Warren getting the start as the number 1 for the Steelers.
And Tim, nobody knows more about Aaron Rodgers' career than you do. You watched him struggle with the Jets a bit, but they are the Jets. And ironically, with this quarterback swap, essentially, you've said that you think he could have a good year with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm buying. I think he has the tools. I think he still has something left in that arm. He's a very smart player. There's so many Aaron Rodgers haters out there, but I've never heard anyone call him dumb. They might not like swagger, they might not like his politics or whatever, but no one will say he's a dumb football player. He knows the game. He knows when to get rid of the ball. He knows when to take the sack. And that's something you can't teach quarterbacks, you can teach it, but that's something that they really need to just experience. And he has more experience than anyone. So I like him with this coaching staff. I love him with a true number 1 receiver. Not that Garrett wasn't, but Garrett Wilson was in a scheme that just, I don't know that the coaching was there, honestly, with the Jets. And so I'm excited to see what Aaron's going to do. If he can stay healthy, this is a dangerous team. I really think they're very dangerous.
Yeah.
Defensively, sorry.
No, you're good.
I was just saying, defensively for the Jets, despite what they were doing on offense, not winning games, obviously, they did have, like we mentioned, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams leading in targets. They're both top 12 fantasy receivers last season with Aaron Rodgers. And their defense was 3rd best in yards per game, only behind the Eagles and the Titans. So there's some glimpse of hope there for them to carry on and kind of balance out this defense with a defensive head coach, and then just have Justin Fields get the ball to Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Garrett Wilson, and kind of just take care of the offense, not lose the games for them, and just handle it, really. Just not force it and make them lose offensively, because the defense, as we saw last year, will take care of that.
Yeah. Caleb, wrap it up. Pittsburgh and Jets, your thoughts?
Oh, man. I think that the Steelers are going to, I don't want to say blow them out, but I think they're going to win this game. I think that Aaron Rodgers definitely has something to prove. It's a revenge game for both quarterbacks, but I think Aaron Rodgers has a chip on his shoulder because he's heard the noise. He knows what everyone's saying about him being old and not being good. He did finish 12th last year statistically as a quarterback. So definitely some juice left in that arm, like Tim said. I like DK Metcalf against Sauce Gardner, which he's exposed before. The Jets did get a new passing game or offensive coordinator. He used to be the passing game coordinator for the Lions, Tanner Egstrom, and he supposedly is going to be good. It's his first time calling plays, though. He was under Ben Johnson, like I said, on the Lions. So curious to see how this team does with Justin Fields, with limited weapons, as Tim said. It's a wait and see situation, but I think Pittsburgh has it.
I feel like every year we go into a conversation about the Jets, it's just doom and gloom. Like, you want to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Then there's times where you can't be because they draft, a bad quarterback a couple of years ago that we're glad is not there. I'm with you guys. The line is 3 points, but I think Pittsburgh absolutely shows up. So I'm excited to.
I mean, doom and gloom. When's the last time they've won or had a winning season in that division? Was it that 2010 playoff season? Was it really that long
Mark
ago?
Sanchez was the quarterback.
15 years ago?
Mark Sanchez,
Yeah. It's been a while.
Rex Ryan,
tough.
Mark Sanchez,
Yeah, it's absolutely tough. Another matchup that we have in the 1 o'clock is, again, your Miami Dolphins and Indianapolis Colts. Guys, I'm not as excited about this game as I might have been before preseason. I think some of it is because I'm not a fan of the quarterback situation. I still watch every Dolphin game thinking Tua is going to get knocked out, and I don't like feeling that way because I like the kid and I want him to be upright. I'm not sure. I have a lot of questions. Josh, they brought in a retired tight end who 2 years ago we all loved, and then he suddenly retired and he's making his debut in a Dolphins uniform. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, not super exciting as it would have been months ago. They have, like you said, Darren Waller starting at tight end. The last few years, other than Jonnu Smith suddenly emerging last year as their number one target, they really haven't had a prominent all-around tight end. And I don't think Darren Waller is going to be that all-around good tight end for them. Maybe he brings a receiving threat to this offense, but he's certainly not going to be everything you want from the tight end position like he may have been for a season or two. But offensively, you really don't know what it's going to look like. And it sounds, I know I've said that a few times, but you have Tyreek Hill. He's not mentioned as a team captain for this team as he previously was, which obviously is a problem for their camaraderie and how successful they're going to be on offense, because we don't really know. We can't really project them as a high-level offense if Tyreek Hill is not producing in this offense. You also have Devon Achane, who's just consistently hurt. He's hurt in the offseason. He's hurt during the regular season last season. And then, like you said, Tua, just not reliable the last couple of seasons. But obviously when he is and the system's going well, they are a high-level offense.
Yeah.
But for this game, I would expect for them to take care of business against Daniel Jones. You would really need Jonathan Taylor to completely take over against this team. And we saw the Miami Dolphins last season. Defensively, they were fourth in yards allowed, only allowing 315. Fourth best defense, rather, last season. So it's going to be tough for Jonathan Taylor to completely take over in this game, I would imagine, against this defense.
And Caleb, Vegas doesn't love this game. They're giving Indy, because they're home, 1.5 points. So Vegas is not real comfortable with this bet either. Your thoughts on this matchup?
I think the Colts have the edge here. They're at home, like you said, but I don't think that's why. I think that they have a brand new secondary. I think that the Dolphins are banged up. Darren Waller, I don't know. We haven't even seen him, so I don't know if he's able to do anything. But he is suiting up. He is playing. I do not like the Dolphins running backs. I'm just biased, I think. But Tua, like you said, is scary. Waddle's always disappeared, and this isn't a big game, but he's disappeared all the time. So I just am not confident at all in that system that the Dolphins run offensively, especially when they're banged up. The Colts, they just have a better team, better defense. I know we just talked about Daniel Jones last week and kind of pooped on him a little bit and him not being great. But I think that they have more weapons. They have Jonathan Taylor, like you said. They have Tyler Warren now, who will be a problem for the linebackers for the Dolphins. And I think that Michael Pittman, as much people hate on him, I think he's still a good receiver. I don't think he's terrible. And then Josh Downs as well. So I just think there's more to do with the Colts. They have more weapons and they have better DBs, and they're going to be able to stop Tyreek Hill and stop Waddle, who's always kind of stopping himself.
Yeah. Tim, you nodded when he said, when Caleb said he didn't love the running back room with the Miami Dolphins. You had something to add to that?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he stole my thunder. I was going to say the same thing. I look at that running back room and there's nothing exciting to me. They're always injured. Yeah. They're not dependable. And I agree with everything Josh and Caleb just said about this matchup. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think Indy is the better team. Do I think Indy's a great team? No, but they're the better team for this Sunday, I think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say my point, I think, with the Dolphins is if we're gonna see the Dolphins at full capacity, it's gonna be week 1. A-Chain is slated to start, but they have Ollie Gordon, the rookie, behind him with Jalen Wright being injured, and he's healthy. He could start for them, and he's the only one that really projects as a lead runner of the football for this team. Obviously, A-Chain explosive, big playability, but these guys are healthy. They seem to be doing fine mentally at this point in time. Tua's playing. So I think there's a time for the Dolphins to hit. It's against a Daniel Jones team that really is not super explosive with the way that Daniel Jones generally plays the game, and all the weight's going to be on just one playmaker on the Colts. So go ahead with what you're going to say.
I just don't know how long the Daniel Jones experience is going to be happening in Indianapolis. Like, I'm still scratching my head. We talked about it, we unpacked it a little bit, but I'm just, I just can't get over it personally. And I understand why Vegas is confused. Tim, I really had to check my glasses on this one. The Arizona Cardinals are visiting the Saints. Both teams.
Yep.
To me, trash. Sorry. I don't love their, I don't love their rosters. I don't love their quarterback situation. I know you guys talk me off the wall with Kyler Murray every year. So just go with me for a second. 6.5 points, Arizona, and they're visiting. Are the Saints that bad? The 6.5 points? I mean, what is going on?
I think that's fair. I mean, Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler last year, he broke. Stay with me. He broke the Saints' rookie passing record with 1,300 yards. They don't have anyone passing the football as a rookie, apparently. And Spencer Rattler just wasn't good last year. He wasn't drafted to be good. And that's what you're getting week 1, is a guy who's not going to put up much numbers. And once again, you're relying fully on Alvin Kamara to beat this team because the Cardinals have fully updated their secondary the last couple of years.
Tim, I just don't think
the problem is when you have a team like that, where there's only one player you have to stop, what are they going to do? They're going to scheme to stop Alvin Kamara. So, I actually weirdly agree with the line. It's not that Arizona's that good. I really do think it's that the Saints are that bad.
Yeah. Well, that gives me clarity because I don't think either team is that good, and 6.5 is a lot of points in the NFL. Caleb, you're shaking your head.
Right, it's a lot of points.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I think that the Saints are probably the worst or the 31st worst team in the league. I think that they're not good at all. I mean, they have a new coach who's exciting. He can coach. His play calling is fun. They have weapons like Rashid Shaheed, hard to say, but he's a burner. He's healthy. I mean, if he gets deep and wide open, they could score points. Alvin Kamara is obviously a weapon. But like you guys said, if they can contain Alvin and force Spencer to throw, I don't think he finished over the 16th best quarterback in a game last year out of like 9 starts. So he's not a great quarterback unless he took a giant leap with Kellen Moore being his coach, which I doubt it. So I think the line's fair.
But think about what happened last season. Spencer Rattler got benched in a game, I believe it was against Bo Nix, so another rookie. Bo Nix wasn't really fully emerged at that point in time. He got benched for Jake Haener. Jake Haener's now cut. Somehow Spencer Rattler's starting. They draft Tyler Shuck in the 2nd round, who eventually will start for them. Maybe it's week 2.
I believe in him.
Right. But there's nothing really pointing to success for these guys. I mean, even the receivers on the football team that Caleb just mentioned, Olave, Shaheed, he hasn't played with these guys. They were hurt last year when he was starting. And so there's not really any basis to go on a Saints win for this team, especially when you have Budda Baker, Will Johnson, Max Melton, Taylor Demerson, all these, Josh Sweat added to the defensive line. We didn't see anything promising from Rattler. There's no reason to assume that they're going to be promising against a good secondary.
Well, then why even have him start? Like you mentioned, they drafted a quarterback. I don't know. It's a schedule maker. This is a head scratcher because
you also have to remember that the Saints have been selling off their defenders the last 2 years. They gave Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders. They gave Paulson Adebo to the Giants. 2 of their best DBs in that order. Tyrann Mathieu just retired. He doesn't want to play for the team. I mean, their defense is decimated. It's not looking good.
And they have a rookie head coach that I'm not convinced is the answer at all. We've talked about that as well. All right, let's move on to a game that may have a little more significance in the big picture. The New York Giants are visiting the Washington Commanders. Obviously, it's an interdivision game, but guys, Washington is starting out with the Vegas line at 6, so they are favored by 6. You guys buying or selling that?
I mean, it's a spoiler alert, but I'm selling it. I think the Giants are very competitive. I think that their defense, their front seven, we talked about it last week. Their defense is absolutely loaded. Majority of their players are Pro Bowlers, and they're all signed. They're all ready to rock. So I think Russell Wilson, I mean, everyone hates on him. He's the easiest guy to pick on since his season in Denver. We saw last year with Pittsburgh, he had stuff in the tank still with that Jets game in prime time. He has flashes of being good, and they have Malik Neighbors. They can burn anybody with Malik Neighbors. I like Tyrone Tracy, their running back. I think that they're competitive, they're coached well, they're hungry, and their defense can shut out players. And I think, like we said last week, that Jaden Daniels, he's young. I mean, we don't know how good he is because he did kind of catch the league by surprise, like we talked about. So it's interesting. It's divisional. It's the perfect storm for the Giants.
Yeah. Tim, all I have to say is, do you have a heart for Dart? Because he is now the second string quarterback according to the depth chart.
I know, man. And it's just how they play this one. How long do they let them sit? And does it depend on the record? You would hope an organization like the Giants, who historically have been a pretty smart organization, they're not a dumpster fire. They generally have good, smart people in there over time. You would think they would have a plan, that it wouldn't just be, oh, we lost week 1, we're throwing him in, or, you know, we're 0-2, we're throwing him in. Like, they should have a plan going into this. But everything Caleb said, I echo 100%. I think this is a really close game. I think that defense is dirty. I think they're going to cause a lot of problems for Washington. And I won't be surprised either team winning. Washington wins it. That sounds about right. But Giants beating them, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. Josh, some interesting moves on their depth chart in terms of player personnel, especially in Washington. Can you shed a little light on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, looking at their running back depth chart, they brought in a couple of guys. Chris Rodriguez was off the team for a moment. He's back on. They drafted Bill Krosky-Merritt, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And he had a lot of hype going into the offseason, but of course the veteran gets the start. Austin Eckler is their number 1 back going into week 1. That's pretty loose. It's not a tight handle, I don't think. But obviously they have confidence in him if they're willing to trade and get rid of their other starter from last year, and Brian Robinson. So Austin Eckler, week 1 starter. But you look at their offense last season, the Washington Commanders, even with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, they were 5th in points scored in the NFL with 485. Specifically for this matchup, the Giants, second worst offense in the league last year with 273 points scored. So 212 more points scored last season than the Giants from the Commanders. So 212 difference, only 273 scored total from the Giants last year. And of course, it's an updated team, a quarterback that is viable and decent. And obviously that updated defense y'all are talking about. So it might be a little closer. And we don't know the track record of Jaden Daniels in week 1s. Last year, I think they lost to the Buccaneers. So we'll see. Interdivision, updated defense. It could be a tougher, closer game than people would imagine with a veteran versus Jaden Daniels as well.
Caleb, it's an interdivision game for our team. So, I mean, obviously this one has some stakes right out of the gate. Your take on the matchup?
I mean, I think Giants win, right? I think I covered that up pretty clear. I think it's a spoiler. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but
yeah, okay,
yeah. Washington. I don't think the good thing about the NFL, or the cool thing at least, is every year it's brand new. I mean, it's start fresh. We don't know what these teams are going to do.
Sure,
teams fall off, coaching changes. I mean, it's a lot. So I wouldn't count on them repeating. We already talked about it ad nauseam last week. So yeah, I think the Giants have a real chance. And I'm just going to pick them to win.
Yeah, for me, it's not a wait and see. Excuse me, because I kind of have an idea where I think these teams are going, like you said. But again, I think it's entertaining to watch because that little bit of mystery. I think the world is saying, "Hey, Daboll's on his last leg. He's about to go, and Washington is so good from last year, so this is a no-brainer." And it looks like Vegas is on board with that as well with the 6 points. Okay. This game made me think back because I'm older than all of you guys. I'm even older than Tim. And I remember in the summer of '94 watching the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars play in the Hall of Fame game as their introduction into the league. And I remember it well. I remember it very well. This week, it's not their introduction. Now they've been in the league for quite some time. And Jacksonville is at home, 3.5-point favorites. Josh, I'm not even sure with all of the things that have been happening around the league that I've kept up with Jacksonville's transactions, moves, or Carolina's. Can you give me a little taste of some changes that they've made? I know some players have moved around. They've got a wide receiver on IR in Carolina already, or on PUP. Tell me a little bit about this matchup from a player's perspective and depth chart.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've hit mostly just offensively, so I'll continue to do that. But you said last year they got Brian Thomas Jr. He was a top 5, I believe 4th statistically in the league. So he's top 5 receiver in his first season. They draft Travis Hunter 2nd overall. And they just announced with their depth chart release that he is a full-time receiver and a backup cornerback. So we assume that he's their number 2 receiver there. And then you look at the Carolina Panthers. They traded Adam Thielen back to the Minnesota Vikings. Jalen Coker gave them the confidence to do that. And obviously now, as you mentioned, he's going on injured reserve. So we have Hunter Renfrow slotting in as that slot guy for the Panthers.
You laughed.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate. I mean, I'm very high on Jalen Coker. I think he's a great receiver. He's going to fill in for their slot. They traded their slot, who was their reliable security blanket last year in Thielen. Got rid of him. A week later, he has a quad strain. He's out for up to 6 weeks. So it's just unfortunate. And then just hearing Hunter Renfro's name just made me chuckle. That's all. That's not anything against him as a man, but it's just a sorry situation.
It is, but Caleb, you're still big on Trevor Lawrence's ability to lead this football team. You've said off mic that you obviously think Carolina's in a good place with their quarterback. Does this game come down to these guys? Is there more factors? What's the determining factor in this game?
It's a good question. I think both coaches have been proven to be good coaches. Liam Cohen obviously is his first year as a head coach, but we saw him turn Baker Mayfield into an MVP candidate last year. I think that's the spark that Trevor Lawrence has been missing. I think that he needs consistent play calling and someone that has his back. He obviously has the weapons, as Josh said, and Brian Thomas. And then they just got Travis Hunter. So the only question I have for the Jaguars, is their running backs. We don't know what they're going to do. We saw Travis Etienne kind of fall off last year. Tank Bigsby kind of fill in the role, and then they drafted Bashal Tutin, who's an athletic freak. So we don't really know what they're going to do there. They also lost Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. So a lot of question marks, but I feel like Jacksonville has the edge. Their defense is much better than the Panthers is, in my opinion.
Tim, you agree? Jacksonville seems to have the edge in this game?
Yeah, I said before there's a lot of intriguing matchups, and initially this was not one of them to me. I looked at this, I thought, who cares? Who cares about these two teams? Sorry if you're a fan of Jacksonville or you're a fan of Carolina. But the more when I was looking at it the last few days, the more I did look into it, you're right. Jacksonville definitely, to me, has a better trajectory. I think new coach is the right move for Trevor Lawrence. I still think he's a very good quarterback. You don't just forget how to play quarterback. I think the thing that Caleb touched on that I'm intrigued to watch with Jacksonville is what that running back room winds up looking like a few weeks into the season. Does one player emerge, or do they kind of go running back by committee there? Because Caleb touched on the 3 names. They're all good. They all kind of have their advantages and disadvantages. But I think Jacksonville's the stronger of the two teams and has a better shot at doing something, especially in the AFC South this year. I think they have a shot at maybe surprising some people.
Yeah.
So you mentioned maybe
a reason.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask Tim a question, but you go ahead and stay on this vein.
Well, Caleb mentioned the defense. Tim mentioned not being excited for this matchup. Right. And there's a few reasons, right? As Trevor Lawrence was hurt, there's not really excitement towards the end of the season to reemerge into this season. Obviously, a lot of question marks there. But the Panthers, overall, yardage and points were the 32 best defense in the league, dead last. Bryce Young showed a lot towards the end of the year.
They're the 32nd best.
Exactly. They're the worst defense in the league last year, right?
Well said.
But Bryce Young, he emerged. He was doing better. Obviously, it gave them the confidence to roll into the season with him. Yeah. But there's not a ton of explosive players on this offense comparatively to the Jaguars. Brian Thomas, if not the most explosive receiver in the league last year as far as big plays, chunk plays, scoring the field at the wide receiver position. Then you add Travis Hunter, who was the most explosive offensive player in college outside of potentially just Ashton Genty. And so they're very explosive. Travis Etienne, while he may not be good, can still produce big plays. And then you look at Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback. People have questions, but you look at his first year where it was basically written off immediately because of Urban Meyer, after a Thursday night or a Monday night game, just not with the team, hanging out in public after a loss against the Bengals, I think it was. Just not a good situation there. And then now more coaching changes. But you look at Trevor Lawrence. In his first 3 seasons combined, he is 5th in yards, only behind Justin Herbert, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, and Joe Burrow. Obviously 4 great quarterbacks ahead of him, and then Trevor Lawrence at the 5th on that list. So he's had 4,000 yards several times. He probably would have had 4,000 yards against last season. And now we have a fully loaded offense for him where they're going to figure out the running back position by the end of the year. And so all things look up for them. And I would imagine against the worst defense last year, they'll have a pretty nice matchup for them week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. No, what I was joking about, Tim, was you said that the matchup, wasn't exciting. How about the Battle of Ohio? How about the Cincinnati Bengals visiting the Cleveland Browns? Is this any more exciting for you, especially with Cincinnati being a 5.5 point? For me, Tim, I'll just jump in on top of this. Like the Bengals going to the Browns. Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry, Ohio.
Yeah.
I'm not real interested in this game because I don't think it's a great week 1 matchup. It's not like an exciting way for these two teams. It seems like the 5.5 for Cincy is clearly they're an offensive juggernaut, and I don't think that the Cleveland's defense is at full force. And I don't see this as being a great week 1 matchup. Do you, Tim?
No, not at all. No, not at all. I mean, Cleveland has undergone so much turmoil in this offseason, and it's such a shame. They seem like they were actually getting their stuff together a few years ago when they had Baker and they had Odell Beckham, and they had a solid team, Jarvis Landry, and it just they made some really bad decisions, starting with at quarterback, giving the richest quarterback contract ever, or guaranteed contract, I think it was at the time. And no, I don't think that Cleveland team's even close to any of the other 3 teams in that division. And I think that line is actually very low. I think Cincinnati blows them out.
Caleb, you're shaking in agreement. I tend to think you agree with this assessment as well.
Yeah, as much as I like Joe Flacco, and I think that he can drop 40 fantasy points for you playing catch-up all game, I think he's a great start for fantasy if you faded quarterback. But I think that the Bengals clearly are the better offense, and then clearly they have, the defense is pretty close, but you could argue that the Bengals are the way better team. Obviously at quarterback and all the weapons they have, it's pretty obvious the Bengals are going to win, I think.
Josh, in terms of defense, they both have prolific edge rushers on this team. The latter just getting signed, Trey, last week, I think. Miles being locked up. So obviously that's impact players that can impact the game. But let's talk about the offense. The Browns are a little more different on offense than the Bengals. They're pretty much running it back, so to speak, for the most part. Can you tell us some differences of what we can look for with these teams?
Yeah, some differences offensively. Of course, they retain T. Higgins, the Bengals, so they have those 2 top receivers there. They have Mike Gesicki and Noah Fant as tight ends. And then, of course, Chase Brown's really the lone guy in that backfield now, going to be catching a ton of receptions. The Browns, we have Cedric Tillman. We have Jerry Jeudy. Once again, Jerry Jeudy was top 10 in yards last year. Really broke out with Jameis Winston. And then you have running back situations in question. They got Quinshon Judkins at pick 36. He's not signed right now because of legal reasons. So we have Jerome Ford, who has played with Joe Flacco just a few years ago when he was on the team. And you have Dylan Sampson, the rookie, as the backup there. And then you look at defensively, you mentioned Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett. Points allowed, the Bengals were 25th in the league, and then the Browns were 27th, so pretty close. Despite the quarterback differences there, obviously Joe Burrow versus backups for the Cleveland Browns. And then offensively, with how well Joe Burrow did, statistically should have been the MVP, but they were 6th in points in the NFL, so right next to the Washington Commanders there.
So again, we started this by saying not the most exciting matchup. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on to the next one? Because I think this is what it is. Yeah. Josh.
No, we're good.
Can I add to the unexcitement?
Yes.
The Browns,
please do.
The Browns have won 2 season openers in the last 20 years. And then you can't forget about that tie they had in the middle of there with the Steelers one year. So we'll say 3 wins. We'll count it as a win. 3 wins the last 20 years.
I mean, we are here to obviously promote the NFL, but we got to call it the way we see it. This is one of 3 games so far that's like, all right. Hey, last year. Yeah, go ahead. One more point. I see you.
Sorry, I was just reading it as we gone along. The last season opener that they won was against the Bengals. So.
So you're saying there's a chance.
No, but
no, there's no chance. Yeah, no, the Bengals should win this game. Enough said. All right, last year, guys, if you remember, Baker Mayfield and Kirk Cousins lit it up as Tampa Bay and the Falcons started their season. I believe it was an early game, if not the first game last year. I don't recall. However, there's no Kirk Cousins. It's Penix. Caleb, is this going to be an offensive back and forth like it was last year?
No. The Falcons' right tackle is out for the year. He is the blindside tackle for Penix, who's left-handed. So
ouch.
Not good, especially with Hassan Reddick on the Buccaneers, who's healthy, and he's a double-digit sack guy every year that he's been healthy. So I don't think that this is going to look very pretty for Michael Penix. Obviously, for fantasy, Bijan Robinson and Drake Leonard are going to get a lot of targets. They're going to score a lot of points for PPR. But as far as real life goes, I think Tampa Bay. It's not going to be close, I don't think.
2.5 points.
I think Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans is going to have a big game. I mean, the defense Tampa Bay has is much better than anything that the Falcons have. They have Winfield, he gets interception every game, it feels like. I just think that the coaching, the quarterback, the receivers, the running backs, everything, they're just better at everything. I mean, not running backs. I take that back. I forget Bijan's there. Pardon me. Bijan is there. But everywhere else, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are better. So that's all I got to say.
Josh, how would you add to that?
Yeah, you guys both mentioned the offense. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 3rd in yards last year and 4th in points. So that puts them right above the Washington Commanders and above the Bengals, of course, who are right under the Commanders as well. But their offense is a little different. While last year they did have Chris Godwin for half the year, they do now have Emeka Egbuka, the first-round receiver, to slot in for him. And then you have Tez Johnson and Sterling Shepard kind of figuring out that 3rd spot while McMillan and Godwin are still coming back. But they have a new offensive coordinator. It's no longer Liam Cohen. It's no longer Dave Canales, who are both promoted to head coaches the next season after being with the Buccaneers. So I imagine it's going to be worse than the previous 2 seasons offensively with how well Baker Mayfield was rushing the football, how much they were able to get out of Bucky Irving, people not really knowing what he's going to add to the offense and kind of learning how he plays the game and how to plan against him. It's going to be a little worse than the previous season for them. But like Caleb said, they get Winfield back, fully recovered. They get Hassan Reddick. But for this matchup specifically, I imagine against Michael Penix, who really only had a handful of starts, this will be another game for him to kind of learn and get used to the NFL game. And it's not going to be promising for him in this one.
Not going to be fun, I don't think.
Yeah.
Tim, final word on this one?
Yeah, if you want to write down one player, I think it's Hassan Reddick. I think he winds up not only having a huge game, but for this matchup. But when we look back next week on next week's show, I think we're going to talk about him as a top performer for the entire league from week 1. That's how good of a performance I think he's going to have.
Wow, I like that.
Oh yeah.
Hey, let's move on to the Sunday late games. All that before 4:00. Red Zone is going to be hopping this weekend, guys. Tennessee, with their rookie quarterback, is visiting the now second-year quarterback in Bo Nix. This is the first of the PM games at 4:00. Guys, Mile High is going to have a couple of young, promising passers. Who wants to start with this one?
I'll start. I said last week that Bo Nix, potential MVP for me. I think that their team is going to be a top 10 team easily. I think they're going to be a playoff team and could push the Chiefs for their division. I really think that's true. I like Sean Payton. I like everything they're doing. Their defense is going to be healthy. They have all the weapons, and they only got better in the draft, RJ Harvey, and they got Evan Ingram in free agency. So upgrades everywhere on offense. I don't think Tennessee has the manpower on defense to stop any of that. Bo Nix has already been one of the most consistent quarterbacks in the league last year, being top 7 in statistical across all stats. So, yeah, Denver, easy.
Tim, Denver's coming in at home, 7.5 dogs. You buying that? Or not dogs? Sorry, 7.5 point favorites. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're buying.
No, sorry. I'm buying the favorites, and I actually think, like another one you asked me on, I think that line is low. I think Caleb said before, this is going to be spoiler. This is going to be one of my locks, because I think I wouldn't be surprised if they won by 20 points. I think there's that much of a differential between these teams. I think Denver's moving in the right direction, and I think Tennessee's crawling. I don't even know if they're moving, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Josh, we mentioned the new rookie quarterback in Tennessee. Any other upgrades or downgrades that are significant? And as Tim said, they're crawling. It does seem like they've made some moves, though, in the offseason.
Yeah, so for the Titans, obviously Cam Ward, there's no competition there with Will Levis going down. Not that it would have been competitive regardless, but Cam Ward comfortably starting, unlike the Saints situation, which is confusing. But Cam Ward, he gets a rookie receiver to play along with him in Elick Manor, who was their second receiver drafted in this class, but he's already slotted in above Van Jefferson as their boundary X receiver, as their number 2 receiver in this offense. The running back situation is Tony Pollard. You would assume Tyjae Spears at some point, but he's injured at the moment, so they have Mullings from Michigan, and they have Julius Chestnut slotted in behind there as well. And then for the Broncos, they have J.K. Dobbins listed as the number 1 in the running game for right now. Obviously, Sean Payton splits the running back work there as well, so it won't be different from Dobbins last season splitting on the Chargers within that Roman offense. But you look at the teams in the previous season, Denver, third best defense last season as far as points allowed. They only allowed 10 more points than the Chargers last year, who were number 1, and then only 7 or 8 points more than the Philadelphia Eagles last year. So they are among the top 3 right there with the number 1 and 2. And then offensively, you look at the Denver Broncos again, they were 10th, I want to say, in points scored. So they were very efficient because their yardage totals on offense weren't immensely high. So with the rookie situation, with kind of discovering a lot of the additional weapons to that offense with the Titans outside of Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard, you would imagine that the Broncos can take care of them in week 1.
Yeah, I would agree. This matchup for me is extremely lopsided, as Tim said. You have the home field advantage. You have a young quarterback that's going to find out the hard way that the NFL is. And I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to do great. But I think this is an awfully tough game for a rookie quarterback on a mediocre team. Let's talk about another division rivalry. The San Francisco 49ers are visiting the Seattle Seahawks. Josh, I'm going to go right to you because Brock Purdy has a lot of different weapons in his arsenal this year, and they have an entire different quarterback and scheme going on. Not scheme, but arsenal in Seattle as well. So tell us a little bit about this matchup.
Yeah, once again, we'll just kind of walk through the roster briefly, but we have Juwan Jennings as the number 1 receiver for the 49ers at this point in time. He's their slot receiver. And then Ricky Pearsall, he's one of their outside receivers. Of course, Deebo Samuel gone, Brandon Ayuk on short-term IR. Maybe we get MVS starting on the opposite side there, but obviously we're going to be expecting a lot from Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. They acquire Brian Robinson from the Commanders to be the number 2 behind Christian McCaffrey. He's been healthy all offseason, McCaffrey that is, so we assume that he can jump back in and get the workload we're used to him getting. And then who's the other team in this matchup once again? Seattle. So we look at the Minnesota Vikings last season and what they did offensively. They were 1 slot above the Denver Broncos. They were 9th in points, just behind the Eagles and the Packers. And so we're expecting not the same thing from Sam Darnold, but of course someone that has won in the previous season with 14 wins last year. He's going to have to hand off the ball substantially more on this Seattle offense. The Seahawks have a new offensive system under Clint Kubiak, a lot of outside zone, so expect Kenneth Walker to get a ton of the work there in that offense.
Caleb, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, piggybacking off what he just said about Kubiak's system, if Walker and Charbonnet if they had 60% of the plays be run plays. I mean, I think they're going to split pretty heavily too. I think that getting Kenneth Walker earlier in fantasy rounds is safe, and I think getting Charbonnet late is safe as well. I think they're both going to perform. Sam Darnold's in a great spot. He has a decent O-line, and he has a great run game that he can rely on if things go south. And he has Cooper Kupp, good security blanket there. and then also JSN, who's an up-and-coming receiver. So offensively, I think I like Seattle more than the 49ers, as crazy as that is to say. I don't trust in McCaffrey's Achilles tendons. Dual tendonitis is scary. He went from playing before the year started last year to not practicing and then just being shut down immediately. So I just don't trust that. I don't like that. And they obviously brought in Brian Robinson as well, because I feel like they're not as confident as they may seem that they are. So I think Seattle at home in that stadium, in the atmosphere, it's very difficult to play in.
Right.
And if McCaffrey has any issues at all in this game, then I think Seattle's a lock. But I think I'm leaning Seattle. I think field goal, maybe it's going to be a tight game, but I think Seattle will win.
San Francisco's favored by 2.5, so the field goal, Vegas is feeling you. Tim, your thoughts? Closing it out.
Yeah, I think I might disagree a little bit with you guys on San Francisco. I think I'm a little higher on San Francisco, although that wide receiver room scares the heck out of me to say that I'm higher on San Francisco and then start listing when we're talking MVS and talk about one of my biggest misses
I love
the years.
Listen, no one asked you to bring this up. All right.
If you go back to one of our 2021 podcasts where I said MVS is going to be the next Davante Adams, swing and a miss on that one. But so that does concern me about their wide receiver room. And again, with McCaffrey as well, his health, that is a bit concerning. I do think they're still the better team. If he's healthy, if he's on the field, he's still one of the best players in the league. I don't know if we could say that about anybody on Seattle, but obviously it takes more than just one player to win a game. I do agree with Caleb from the standpoint playing in Seattle opening week. That vibe in Seattle. I hate Seattle, but you've got to admit they've got such a great fan base, and that's a tough place to play. So I do think it winds up being a close game. I'd be really, really surprised if it's a blowout in either direction.
Yeah, I think it'll be close either way.
Can I add one thing about the Seahawks to just signify what they're doing in the run games? They have a fullback starting on their roster now, Robbie Oots from Alabama, and then what they did in the tight end room, AJ Barner blocking a lot for Michigan, now blocking in line for them. They moved Noah Fant. And then they're not really going to be running 3 receiver sets, I imagine, but Torrey Horton, the rookie, has won that spot as well. So if you need a flyer, potentially, that's going to have some sort of snaps, Torrey Horton looks like that guy for this team at least.
Something to look forward to, perhaps. All right, Tim, I'm going to start with you. This is a big one. Detroit Lions visit the Green Bay Packers. Lots and lots of headlines here. Is Hutch back? Is he playing in this game? Do we know? He is playing in this game.
I believe so. Yeah.
And is Micah Parsons playing in this game? I hear he is, but I've also heard a lot of news lately. Tim, let's start us off with this. It looks like Detroit is the underdog. Green Bay at home, favored 2.5. Your take? Green Bay's favorite.
It's a good thing I don't gamble. It's a good thing I don't gamble, honestly, because even as a Packers fan, I don't know that I'd be that comfortable buying on that. I do think the one thing that would concern me, just saying it objectively, for Detroit would be, to lose your offensive coordinator and to lose coordinators in any offseason changes the scheme. And so they've gone through some coaching changes there. Obviously, Dan Campbell's still there, and Dan Campbell's Dan Campbell. He's a great coach. But they've lost some of their coordinators with Detroit. Green Bay, again, I think we said it last week, it's going to really depend on see the rookie wide receiver Matthew Golden is kind of slotted to be their number one, honestly. Romeo Dobbs is out there. Jaden Reed, we talked about this a little bit last week. He's going to try to play through some injuries, supposedly. We'll see when the game time decision comes on that one. But I do think, just being in Green Bay week one, typically the last Matt LaFleur teams have not gotten off to the best start in week one. I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I know we lost overseas last year in Sao Paulo to Philly. I think they lost a tough one a few years ago against the Niners. And when I say a tough one, like they got destroyed against the 49ers in week one. So it'll be, as a Green Bay Packers fan, you're looking to see them get off to a hot start this year and just back up, justifying that trade. The big Mike Parsons trade. Also interesting, just a fun little footnote for you. We were talking about this before we went on the air. The Packers, obviously the only team in the NFL without an owner, and they have a policy where president has to step down when he turns 70 years old. It's a forced retirement. And so this is year one. They have Mark Murphy as their team president, very conservative guy, smart guy. And this is their first season and first off season under a new team president named Ed Policy. So it'll be interesting to see, just do they continue to stay aggressive throughout the season, and if they need to pick players up, and just going forward, what type of team they're going to be.
I heard an interesting fact, Tim. I don't know if this is true, and if it is, you guys let me know this. But I hear Brett Favre was 27 when he won his first Super Bowl with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers was 27 when he won his Super Bowl with the Packers. How old is the young quarterback in Green Bay right now, Josh?
I'm assuming you're insinuating that he's 27, but I'll check for you.
I am insinuating that he's 27.
I'll throw one more fun fact.
He'll be 27, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim.
When Brett Favre turned 27, they acquired Reggie White to go on the defense. When Aaron Rodgers turned 27, they acquired Charles Woodson the same year. And here we go, Jordan Love, and we got this guy from the Cowboys.
It's like fate.
Who's supposedly pretty good.
It's like fate. I love
it. We'll see, man. We'll see.
Caleb, what is your take on that? Go ahead, Josh. You had something to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is the reason that the Packers are favored in this game? Because, like Tim mentioned, the coaching changes from the Lions. Are we putting that much weight in Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn? Because the team hasn't changed a whole lot. No. As you mentioned, they got Aiden Hutchinson back. They were favored in all those games at the end of the year without him. Or is it the Micah Parsons trade that puts the Packers over the top for this one?
I mean, I don't understand Vegas at all. Green Bay is at home. That's usually worth a point and a half. So I think Vegas is saying, well, they're at home. I don't think that they know how to assess the line. This one's a tough one for me because, like you said, Josh, I think the Detroit ended the season, last I checked, with a ton of defensive starters unable to make the field, and they're back.
Yeah, very hurt.
Mm-hmm. I'm also a wait and see guy, as I said before. I think Aaron Glenn is great, and he'll be back coaching the defense on this team in 3 years because he's a Jets coach, and they never survive. And I'm a wait and see guy. Ben Carson, listen to me. Wrong podcast. I think Ben Johnson's going to do fine, but I'm not sold yet. This is the old Parcells Belichick, like I've said before. Like, who is the mastermind here? So I think Campbell's going to do fine, as you said, Tim. But I'm not convinced yet that his offensive coordinator was the juice. We've seen it with Nagy and a couple other people that leave and then come back with their tail between their legs. So I'm not sold yet on that. And we'll talk about that team last because they're our Monday Night Football game. But Caleb, I believe you're the last one up on this one. I'm going Lions despite the line. But what are your thoughts?
I think that they're very comparable teams. I think they both have great head coaches. Quarterbacks are both good. Obviously, you can look at statistics. I think Goff's a little bit better right now. Running backs, very similar. Josh Jacobs was top 5 last year statistically, and Jahmyr Gibbs top 5 last year statistically. Both have top 5 edge rushers. Both have solid DB rooms now, especially with all the moves that the Packers have made the last few years. Wide receivers, Lions probably have the edge there, but tight ends it's very neck and neck. So I think the rosters themselves are very similar in how they're built. Mm-hmm. And I think I wish that they would have flexed this game to a primetime game. I think it's going to be that good. It's going to be one of the better games. And I don't know the schedule going forward in the year, but when they play each other again, it might be more at stakes. So I think that this game sets the tone for that game and can set the tone for the postseason for this division. So I think it's a very important game out of the gate. And I'm very interested in seeing what happens. But I think Green Bay at home has the edge, and I don't like that both the coordinators from the Lions are gone. I think it does play a big part. So I think that Green Bay has the slight edge with the consistency, being at home and just being comfortable and being, I don't know. I mean, it's 50-50 either way, but I think Green Bay wins.
All right. Go ahead, Josh.
If you look at both teams last season, points allowed and then points scored on offense, the Detroit Lions were the number 1 scoring team in the NFL. They were second in yards to the Baltimore Ravens, but as far as points go, they had 564 points scored. That was 39 more than second place Buffalo Bills, which was a larger margin than every other team separated, if you look at that. So a crazy statistical offensive season for them. But the Packers were 8th offensively, right behind the Eagles, only a few touchdowns less than the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles Super Bowl defending champs. And then defensively, points allowed. The Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions were almost identical defensively. And so now you add Micah Parsons to that defense. The Lions, just an outlier season offensively, something that probably will not be replicated in a Jared Goff offense and a different offensive system. We know that their offensive coordinator now comes from the Denver Broncos last year, of course, with their success with Bo Nix. So he has success, but he's been an offensive coordinator as well, Morton, that is, for the Lions now. But are we really expecting for them to produce at the same level that they did last year? And I think the answer is no. They probably will not be the number one offense and not score at almost a 40-point differential to the number two offense. And so defensively, offensively, outside of scoring, last year they scored an insanely high rate. If you had Dave Montgomery as the number two back, he had 12 touchdowns. Just you can't bet on it. And so when you look at the two teams, they are very similar. And then I think you would give the leg up to that Packers defense now with the way McKinney played and now Micah Parsons. So I think it's a very close matchup, and I understand why the Packers are favored. But
yeah,
I think I'm going to go with Tim and say that the Packers pull this one out.
Yeah, it's fair. It's totally fair. Okay, a couple more games, and we're going to move on.
Yeah.
The Texans are visiting the Rams. Not a lot of hype going into this game. It's not a division rivalry. None of those things. I guess the most noteworthy thing, Josh, for this game right now has been the news that Matthew Stafford, in his 150th birthday, I'm kidding, he is in fact going to be likely to start, despite having some back issues. Anything else noteworthy from a depth chart or player perspective? Any surprises on who's going to be starting this game when we talk about Houston and LA Rams?
Yeah, so there's no real surprises. I would say, of course, the Rams, same team from last year. Tyler Higbee's healthy. They have Terrence Ferguson now as their number two tight end, who plays pretty similar to Tyler Higbee. But offensively, you have Puka and Devontae Adams. Kyron Williams, who got extended. And the Houston Texans, there'd be more question marks, but we know who's going to be playing. Nico Collins, of course. Jaden Higgins, who they drafted at pick 34. Jaden Higgins drafted at 34. T. Higgins was drafted at 34 years ago. So you expect them to be slotted in immediately. And then Christian Kirk they got from the Jaguars. And then the running game is the real question mark for them. Joe Mixon a few years ago, it was kind of the same situation where he was injured, and it was like, of course he's going to come back. Like, they haven't really mentioned it as something that is severe, but it does sound like he's going to miss a good portion of the season, if not the whole season. And they still haven't really explained why, but it's happened with Joe Mixon before. So Nick Chubb looks like the guy to be slotted in as the week one starter for them.
Yeah, we've had a little off-screen discussion about Nick Chubb. Your thoughts for him and his position and his role this year for this team?
Yeah, I think for fantasy, you got him late. I think like around 12 to 15 in a redraft, depending on what size your league is. I wouldn't start him this week. I would wait and see, obviously, but hold on to him. He's number one on the depth chart, and I know that there's been some speak of him being not good, but he's still number one on their depth chart over a rookie, over Dameon Pierce, who's been there for years, and over Dyer Ogunbowale, who's been there for a few years as well. So he's still better than those guys according to them. So he still has some juice, in my opinion. As far as the game goes, the Rams, they're loaded on offense. We just talked about it. Josh mentioned Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. Their tight ends are healthy. Matt Stafford's healthy. Obviously, they have firepower. They can put up 30 points against anybody, in my opinion. Matt Stafford has always been that guy. Doesn't matter what his team looks like. It seems like he can put up points. But Houston, they're loaded everywhere. Their entire team, outside of running back, you can argue. Everywhere on their team is loaded. I mean, I'm picking Houston. I think it's, well coached. I'm picking Houston. I think that they have the better just overall roster. Their defense is more stable, in my opinion. A lot of veterans. Danielle Hunter is one of the best edge rushers in the league. Playing against a hobbled Stafford, I know he's healthy, but he is getting older, and these edge rushers are coming, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. So I'm picking the Texans.
And I think Caleb said a lot, Tim, but we're talking about Houston, who came on not last year, but the year before, like gangbusters. Matthew Stafford still playing at a high level. Both teams well coached. How do you see this one? By the way, the Rams are favored by 2.5. I think Vegas is just going with the home teams at this case, but.
Yeah. You know, we were talking earlier about sneaky good games, sneaky good matchups.
Yeah.
And I do stand by that. But I do think that one's a lower scoring game just because of the reasons we talked about that. This is another one of those sneaky good matchups no one's really talking about. Both of these teams should be playoff teams. I mean, they both have the potential to win their division, honestly. They made favorites to win their division, the AFC South and the NFC West. But I think the difference between this matchup and the Vegas-New England matchup is, and Josh said the same thing. It's going to be high octane. I think both teams wind up putting up somewhere around 30 or 40 points. And I think it's a really exciting game, actually. But I think it's a coin toss. I do think Houston's probably the better team. And let's Rams being home, that is not a home field advantage. That's probably the worst home field advantage in all of football. Half their fans are cheering for the opposing team. So I don't know that that's going to help them too much.
Yeah, we have one game. And go ahead. You had something to add before we move on, Josh?
Oh, just kind of speaking on what numbers were for these teams last year. The Houston Texans were the fifth best defense as far as yardage goes, 315 yards allowed per game. So their defense was doing their job there. They have obviously talent there and their edge rushers. Will Anderson, we're assuming, takes another jump for them. But the Rams, let me see what their numbers were as far as points or yards even. Yards, they were 26th. So a little bit of a difference there. Of course, they have emerging edge rushers there defensively. And then offensively, like we mentioned with the Cowboys, one of the two receiving corps in the league to have receivers average 1,000 yards the last two seasons, which, of course, promising there with Matthew Stafford. We see how he elevates wide receiver play there.
Sure.
Cooper Kupp, the season that he had, one of the better seasons all time. Not exaggerating, of course, with his 2,000 yards almost in that season. And then you look at what he's done with Puka Nacua every single year and the target share that he has. So the passing game is going to be great for them as far as Stafford is alive. And obviously there's a lot of times where we see him injured and not breathing his best. So hopefully for them, like we said with the 49ers and the Dolphins, if there's a time for them to hit, it's week one when they're all assuming they're healthy.
They're healthiest they can be. Two teams that don't have any issues with their young quarterbacks staying upright, the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills. They're going to line up against each other for the 8:20 game, Buffalo being at home and favored. Again, Vegas, not real sure. Vegas is not really putting it out there. 1.5 point favorites for the home team, Buffalo. Guys, this is these are two generational quarterbacks that keep getting matchups, and I think it's an incredible first week treat that we get to watch these two guys. The bad news is they're both perennial Super Bowl contenders, and one of them gets the loss. Caleb, let's jump right in. Who are you taking in this Buffalo Lamar Jackson game, and why?
I'm going to take Baltimore. I think that they're the better roster. I know that the Bills are a little banged up. Christian Benford just left practice today with an injury. Their star corner, Trey White's been out basically all preseason. A lot of their defenders are banged up. They don't really have a wide receiver one. I think we talked about it last week. They have three slot receivers and two slot receiving tight ends, and James Cook, who had an outlier season last year with 18 touchdowns, which probably won't happen again. Baltimore is a better roster overall. Derrick Henry, obviously, I think he scored 19 touchdowns last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he was probably one of the best running backs last year. And Buffalo's linebackers are notoriously hurt. Matt Milano has been hurt lately and not been consistent. Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. We don't have to talk about him much. No. But Baltimore's their offense with Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and Mark Andrews being there. I mean, they're loaded everywhere. They have wide receiver ones, two of them in my opinion. I just think that they're the better team, and it is in Buffalo at night in prime time, so there's a little bit of an edge there for the Bills, but I think that Baltimore has it.
Tim, you smiled when he said that. What are your thoughts on this Buffalo game?
Yeah, you stole my script, man. Exactly, word for word. I agree with every single thing you said, and it's funny, the last few seasons going into week one, it was flipped. We would say the Ravens are great, but they're banged up. They lost this guy. And so now it's kind of flipped. Obviously, I think you'd have to be a fool to argue that these two are not two of the top 5 or 6 teams in all the NFL. I think anyone that follows the NFL would agree that these are two of the best teams. But I think you're right. This year, Buffalo's a little bit banged up. I think Baltimore's got the stronger roster just overall, even when they are both healthy. And I think it'll be fun, man. It's going to be a fun matchup. Buffalo, those fans are going to be going nuts. But give me Lamar. I'm going Baltimore.
Yeah. Josh, bring it home for us.
I agree. I think the Baltimore Ravens should be favored in this matchup. They were both top 3 offenses last season. The Baltimore Ravens leading the league in yardage with what Lamar Jackson was able to do, and obviously Derrick Henry equaling over 7,000 yards last season. But you saw the Buffalo Bills in the preseason. It's preseason once again, but you got to see their defensive scheme and what was going on there, and just how the Bears and other teams repeatedly just hit deep beyond the linebacker zone. And just their secondary is injured. Their linebackers are great at running or stopping the running game, but no Hairston, no Trey White, probably no Christian Benford. Cole Bishop hasn't really played a ton. And you have big play potential from Zay Flowers, from Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, seam routes. It's just there's a lot to attack on the Buffalo Bills defense right now. I'm not sure and confident in Matt Milano's game at this point in time. If you rewatch the Rams game from last year, Blake Corum sucked the life out of the man on one cut run. It's just brutal for them. And I think Josh Allen's really going to have to step up in this offensive scheme with Joe Brady, who does not prioritize a boundary number 1 wide receiver. When he took over, when Ken Dorsey got fired mid-year as offensive coordinator, you saw essentially Khalil Shakir take over as the number 1 in that offense in the slot over Stephon Diggs. It was just not good to see. And so you have, once again, Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman on the outside. And it's your main focus offensively is Khalil Shakir and James Cook, who played half the snaps and scored at an insanely high rate. It's just, I don't think it's 100% something that you could bet on. And then defensively, they're beaten up all across the place right now. And you saw it exposed in the preseason. Hopefully that's not what it looks like in the regular season for them, but it all signs point towards that being a rough season defensively.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
They also signed Gabe Davis back to their team. Which even signifies more that they're a little worried about their wide receiver position with Josh Palmer being their ex receiver, and everyone else signed on the roster, Elijah Moore, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, all being slot receivers. So they're definitely missing that feature to their offense that Josh Allen needs, in my opinion. Stephon Diggs, Pro Bowler, one of the best receivers in the league when he was with Josh Allen in that role. So they need to find something to do with that.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you guys said is spot on. Let's transition to our Monday night game. This is a big one, Tim. It affects your division. It affects a lot of things we've talked about. My wait and see if this rookie coach is going to be good in Chicago. We already know they have an offensive-minded, brilliant head coach in Minnesota. He's getting praised for being able to take virtually anyone and make him play the quarterback position well. Lots to unpack. This is the last one we're going to talk about before we shift to our last little segment. So we have Minnesota Vikings visiting Chicago Bears. Monday Night Football. 1.5 point favorite Minnesota. 1.5. Again, Vegas is hot. The hot takes. Caleb, you've been, I don't want to say critical. You've had a lot to say about Caleb Williams and McCarthy. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about the two quarterbacks.
Sure. Obviously, you talked about O'Connell being a great coach. He took a guy off the couch last year, off the bench last year, and made him MVP candidate, like legitimately, statistically, 14 wins, like, in my opinion, statistically better than Josh Allen, but whatever. We'll talk about that later. You would think that J.J. McCarthy is going to be a guy that steps in and just can muster up 3,500 yards and hopefully 30 touchdowns and get double-digit wins and sneak into the playoffs with the Lions and Packers being in the division. I don't think that's happening. I don't think he averaged more than 2 touchdowns a game in college ever. He's not
it's a lot of head
a big arm guy. He's not going to carry your team. He's obviously a system guy. We saw at Michigan. They got sniped out of Drake May in that draft, and they just drafted the next best available, in their opinion. I don't think that they're glued to him. I think obviously they spent the draft capital on J.J. McCarthy.
But they believe in him. They believe in him.
If he comes out and stinks it up, I do not think they have a problem benching him for Wentz. And I think Wentz will perform just fine in this system with Kevin O'Connell. So as far as this game goes, I'm picking Chicago. I think that they're loaded. They're better overall, in my opinion. Specifically because of Caleb Williams being a competent quarterback. So I think that The offensive scheme is going to be better. The weapons that he has on that team with him, I think Rome Odunze takes a big step. We'll talk about this later, but I think Caleb Williams, it's at home. He's more poised and ready to take that leap forward than J.J. McCarthy is, who's going to be a deer in the headlights. And it's going to be check down, easy read system with all their short game that they're going to have to do with Aaron Jones and TJ Hawkinson, and they're going to have to make it look better than he actually is. So I don't think that holds up, especially being in prime time.
Josh, let me ask you, because I know you pay great detail to offensive schemes, and we already see what we have with Minnesota in terms of the scheme and the setup and the players. What we don't really know is that big question mark about what the new look Chicago offense will actually be like. What is your expectation, thoughts? How do you look at this new look for the Chicago Bears on offense?
Yeah, you look at the quarterback that they had on the Lions last year, of course, Jared Goff. He was a first overall pick, as you know. He's just not a superb arm talent in comparison to Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams you can do a lot more with. Then you have he's kind of building the similar style of offense with the type of players that he's putting in this offense. We know when he took over, they got Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta had a historic year at the tight end position with Ben Johnson. They go back and get a top 10 tight end pick in Colston Loveland. Now they have two tight ends on this team as well. DeAndre Swift, he's played for the Lions. He's now on this system as well. And he can be put into that role. Obviously, don't expect the same from him like Gibbs did last year. But I think they're kind of piecing it together a lot like they did on the Lions. They got offensive linemen. They got Jonah Jackson, who previously played for the Rams, but previously played for the Lions before then. So they're kind of tooling this entire offense together. And I think just with a more talented quarterback than Jared Goff as far as his ceiling goes. And so I think the season that Caleb Williams had is kind of overstated. If you look at the commentary from the preseason games, talks about how his season was not good and how he just wasn't good. But the only exception to that, it would be the sack count that he took. And so, yes, what comes with that is a bad offensive line, but also holding on to the football. But he made so many plays holding on to the football and running around with the football comparatively to other guys that just don't know what they're doing, holding on to it a lot too long. Like, you hate to bring him up, but Shedeur Sanders, he gets sacked holding on to the football because he doesn't necessarily know what he's doing. Caleb Williams is a first overall pick because he can make plays and make magic happen with his arm. And so you get a Ben Johnson offense that was run smoothly and routinely with Jared Goff, and then you throw in a quarterback that can make all the plays and all the throws, and they're going to do very well, in my opinion, with this system.
Nice. Tim, you have the final word. These are teams that you've seen your Green Bay Packers go against many, many, many times. You know, the sad thing, Tim, is everyone in your division should be good.
I know. I wish that wasn't the case.
I like them all. Like, I don't dislike any of them, you know?
No, I know. And it pains me to say this as a Packers fan, but I think the Bears are going to be really good. I started the podcast by saying I think there were three I call them gap games just to see if these teams were able to close the gap. The Chargers, you know, I think they've gotten a lot closer to Kansas City on. They've overcome them. I think the Giants have gotten a lot closer to Washington. Not sure if they've overcome them. Chicago has gotten, not only have they gotten closer to Minnesota, I do think they've overcome them. I think Chicago winds up, I know this is for me, but I will say I think Chicago winds up higher in the standings this year than Minnesota. I think they're the better team. I actually do have that much faith in Ben Johnson, and I think I have that much faith in Caleb Williams and the offensive, everything that Josh and Caleb just talked about, the pieces that he's putting in place. That's a heck of a team. I mean, they've got some really good pieces there. And one of the faults of the Bears last year was the offensive line. Well, they've worked on that, and they've just a really smart offseason. Again, it pains me as a Packers fan to say this, but I thought they had a heck of an offseason, putting together a really good team and addressing what was weak on their team and keeping what was strong and just building off of that. I think they win this game. It's in Chicago. I think they win. I think they're the better team. And everything you said about McCarthy, I agree. I don't think I think the Vikings take a step back. I really do. And I think Chicago wins this game.
Yeah. For reference, the Chicago Bears were 13th best defense as far as points allowed last season. And then the Vikings passing the football at a significant rate as we know, J.J. McCarthy running a run-first team for Michigan, a team that won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line 2 out of 3 years that he played. It's just you throw him in his offense where he's expected to throw and expected to produce with 2 1,000-yard receivers. It's not going to be instant gratification there. And then you look at one and done potential. If he does not perform in the quarterback class next season, it's certainly in play.
I do have one more point. I think that they do know this because they brought in Jordan Mason, who is a grinder running back. He gets a lot of carries. He can handle a workload. So they know, and we all know Aaron Jones isn't a grinder. He's a catchback. He's change pace back. He's very talented. He can't handle 25 touches a game. So splitting it with someone like Jordan Mason, they know they're going to have to go run heavy. They know that J.J. McCarthy's not going to be the guy to throw 35, 40 times in a game like Sam Darnold is doing. So I think that they know.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot we could say about this entire division. They quietly just have really good coaches, really quality players, a lot of homegrown talent in terms of they're drafting their people. They are making acquisitions, but these are really quality. These are like teams like that everybody should get on board with. I mean, they're just solid football teams playing smart, heady football, and they've kind of snuck up on us if we're being honest. Like I said for a long time, like where did LaFleur even come from? And you know, they're so smart in letting Jordan Love sit on the bench. You know, he's basically starting in his second or third season at 27. That's old for the starting, but for giving him the time to sit behind, you know, Rodgers and learn, it pays off. So, I mean, these are franchise, for lack of a better word, you know, these are storied franchises that are putting it together the right way. And it kind of stinks that it comes at the expense of each of them being good at the same time, you know? Because they're fun to watch. Yeah. So they're fun to watch. Yeah. Hey, I want to shift gears real quick. I know we've run a long time. We're a little bit long, and that's okay. But let's just go ahead and switch before we move off to our final segment. We'll move quick. I ask you every week of every season for locks and upsets. Guys, I'm going to give you my 2 right quick. I toiled over this because I had a couple, but I think you guys already said it, so these aren't going to be surprising. I think Seattle, who is not favored to win at home, surprisingly, to San Francisco, will in fact upset, and Seattle will start the season off 1-0. San Francisco will not. And I'm going to lock in those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Y'all said it convincingly. If people aren't listening, and again, it's hard with the first week in these small lines of 2.5. Tampa Bay is visiting Atlanta. I think Tampa Bay absolutely locks that game, and they rout those guys. So upset and lock. Tim, have you got an upset and a lock you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, my lock is Denver.
Yep.
Yeah, Denver at home versus Tennessee. I think that's my lock. The other one, I was toying between that and the Arizona one. I do think Arizona is also a lock over, not because they're good, but just New Orleans is not. My upset, no, I have to backpedal a little bit on my upset because I actually thought the line was, so I'm picking Chicago to win. I thought Chicago, going back to the line before, did you say Chicago's the favorite right now or no?
Chicago is not favored.
Not
Minnesota
the favorite.
is a 1.5. I'm double checking the current line.
Sorry. I thought I misunderstood you then before. So yeah, I'm going Chicago as my upset then.
Okay. Caleb, you got some for us?
Sure. You're going to call me a homer.
Okay.
Do it.
What is it?
The upset is Dallas.
Whoa. Okay.
Love it.
I have a gut feeling. I don't know what it is. Call me crazy. But
let me say this. Caleb, as long as Caleb's been alive, Dallas has not been winning. I don't know how better to say it. It has nothing to do with Caleb being alive. No. They haven't been winning. And almost every year, it's been hard to watch, you know, my boy have the disappointment that he has on his face. And the other day when he broke it to me that, I don't know, something's different, that was pretty exciting. It gave me a little boost. So I'm shocked that you're taking it, though. And I know someone else who's an Eagles fan is not going to love you taking it because you're usually right. But, okay, so you're upset. Dallas will win in Philadelphia. You still going with it? And as I'm saying it out loud?
I think it's off the foot of Aubrey. Buzzer beater.
Is it possible this is a trap game for Philly?
I absolutely. If you look at their schedule, if someone could pull it up, Josh, maybe you could pull it up for me.
Yeah.
Philadelphia's schedule the first month of the year is abysmal. It's brutal. Terrifying. Josh will read it in a second, but it's. I don't know if this team can start 500 the first month of the year. I'm worried about them. I really am. Yeah, and I think that Dallas, especially if Dallas comes out swinging this game, Philly, it could derail their first month of the year. I mean,
I mean, that's what
What you
rivalries
got,
are
Josh?
all about.
What they say?
Yeah. So your schedule for the Eagles,
First 5.
they have a week 9 bye, but they have played Dallas, Kansas City, the Rams, the Bucks, and the Broncos the first 5 weeks of the game or the season.
I hope their defense
30.
is ready. I hope their defense.
Rough.
What is?
Yeah.
Can you?
That's my upset. Dallas
Yeah.
is my upset.
All right, give me your
And
lock.
my lock, I think, is going to be, I don't know if they're favorites. Pittsburgh favored?
Pittsburgh's
believe
favored
so.
by 3.
Yeah, they're my lock. Lock them in, baby. Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. Aaron comeback Rodgers.
That's right.
All right, Josh, you're the last man standing. Locks and upsets.
Yeah, I think I was in a very similar stance as Tim, but I think I'll go 2 locks because I think this one just seems a little too easy. The Cardinals over the Saints. Spencer Rattler, like Caleb said, not a top 20 quarterback in his life so far in the NFL. They're an older roster, and there's going to be huge dependency on trying to figure it out with Olave and Shaheed, as Rattlers never play with them, and
Right.
really focusing in on Alvin Kamara for that defense. The Cardinals were a top 10 run team. They're 7th in yards per game. And I think, obviously, what comes with a backup quarterback is time of possession and needing to control that. And the Saints were 29th last year, so bottom 5 there in time of possession. As a top 10 rush team for the Cardinals, they're going to be able to do that with Kyler Murray, with James Conner, with Trey Benson, and the outlet option of Trey McBride against the Saints. My other lock would be the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have brought in rookie edge rushers, but like once again, they were worst in both statistics as a defense last year. You have a very explosive offense potentially with Liam Cohen, with Lawrence back, with Hunter, Thomas, and then the 3 running backs. They can all create big plays despite not having a clear starter there. And my upset, I wanted it to be the Chicago Bears. But I'm gonna find someone else for you real quick because that's who I was locked in on for sure. I'm gonna go with no, you're fine. I'm gonna go with the LA Chargers over the Kansas City Chiefs. Just Pacheco, he's their RB1 right now, but I don't necessarily know if they want him to be. I think they eventually will bring in a talent here within the next season to take him over. Like I stated at the beginning, Xavier Worthy has not been a number 1 receiver for them. He's being asked to be a number 1 receiver for them, not having any 80-plus yard regular season games. They're going up against the number 1 defense statistically in the LA Chargers. And then obviously you look at the Chargers and what they have now. They have Keenan Allen, they have Trey Harris, they have Quentin Johnson, Lad McConkey. They have the running game. Their defense, the offensive line is fine. Despite having Rashawn out for the year, they're going to do just fine. And I think a lot of things point towards picking the Chargers, just like a lot of things picked or showed us to choose the Eagles in the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. But in the back of all of our heads, it's the Chiefs, it's Pat Mahomes, it's Andy Reid. I think a little bit of that changes this year with that sentiment, and I think that the Chargers get it started off in week 1.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, guys. That's great stuff, in fact. Hey, we want to do something just a little bit different as we're closing out because I get asked a lot. I share what I can, but I feel like you guys are really the fantasy experts. I think every year, especially week 1, would be good for our listeners to hear from you guys some players that I would call fantasy mistakes. And let me give you an example. We talked about it a little bit, but let me give you some numbers. Jahmyr Gibbs. Last year, and I'm not saying he's a potential bust, but last year, I think he had 20 touchdowns. They were inflated because David Montgomery missed games, a lot of games, back to back. So I'm saying if you're a fantasy owner, at least for me, you should expect a heavy regression as far as he goes because he's in a committee and he's going to split. And I don't think he's getting 20 touchdowns. So if you're new to fantasy, if you're just not sure and you're drafting a guy, in his ADP context, he's usually what? RB3, 4, top 5 overall, something like that. I'm saying he's going to split and expect a regression. So maybe he's a fantasy mistake for you if you think that he's going to get you 20 touchdowns again. So along that vein, do you guys have some players that we could give our listeners that at some level, a team, player, something that you would like to give our listeners to help them out with their fantasy team this year? Fantasy mistakes.
Sure, I'll go. It's not a specific player, but it's more of a team. I would say anyone on the Chargers not named Lad McConkey, I would stray away from. We've seen Harbaugh not care about draft capital, not care about your star rating recruiting in college. He doesn't care. He's a merit-based coach. If you're a better player, you're going to start. So I would stay away from Quentin Johnston. I would stay with Keenan Allen. He has no problem starting Trey Harris over them because he started Ladd McConkey over everyone last year. He doesn't care. Saw him start quarterbacks in college over better quarterbacks who were rated higher in Michigan. So he does not care if Trey Harris is playing better or is playing better that day. He's going to start over Quentin Johnston, who just is coming off a concussion. So I would stay away from the Chargers receivers not named Ladd McConkey.
Okay, Josh, what are your thoughts for at least week one? Or do you have a broader brush?
I mean, I think I support Caleb as far as the cost of those players.
Right.
Just obviously, if you can get Keenan Allen for free and Quentin Johnson off the wire, then there's no risk to you.
Yeah, but you're not starting them week one.
Yeah. There's no expectancy there.
Right.
And I have something just to support what you're saying with Jahmyr Gibbs, at least. Historically, the most touchdowns from an offense was 76 by the Broncos with Peyton Manning the year prior to the Super Bowl win. Then you have Tom Brady, 75, 2007, another Super Bowl team. The Kansas City Chiefs in the first year with Pat Mahomes starting. They had that historic year, that 100-point game against the Rams. Then you have the Lions from last year. So they were the fourth best offense of all time just last season. And so to expect that and to expect that level of return from someone like Gibbs or Montgomery even, who had 12 touchdowns as the number 2 back, it's something we can't bet on, but certainly they're a good team, a good offense. So we'll see, but not the same numbers for sure. I think for me, it's going to be Kyren Williams for the season. You look at the offense that they have now with Puka Nacua, with Devontae Adams. That's going to be the focus for them. We saw last year with the Jets, the focus was Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. It was not Breece Hall. It was not the running game. And so you invested heavily in Breece Hall, but now he's essentially free, all things considered, with the position and the worth of the position. He's not worth a ton. And I think Kyren Williams, with his inefficiency, with them continuously adding running backs with Blake Corum just last year, Jarquez Hunter, we can't expect the same level of inefficient grinder type running back play from that run game. And I think that with adding in the 2 players, Hunter and Corum, they're going to get more work in that backfield. It's not going to be just him, but obviously he's not going to be the focus on offense anymore. Because Cooper Kupp's been hurt for 2 years, and Kyron's had the opportunity to fill in there a lot.
Tim, some thoughts? Any mistakes that people can make?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different take. I have 3 players for you that you don't want to make the mistake just because of their depth on the depth chart and overlook these players. So I would start with Washington. We mentioned him before. He goes by Bill. Yeah. So right now he's their RB4. He's the 4th running back on the depth chart. But I could see him potentially being their RB1 within the first few weeks of the season. So I know that they're starting with Austin Eckler because he's a veteran, but I could see, don't be turned off by the fact that he's RB4. If you're able to pick him up, stash him on your bench, he might be a starting running back in the first few weeks of the season. I'll go to Pittsburgh next. We talked about it earlier in the second one. Right now, he was the 3rd round of the draft this year. Right now, he's behind Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell. But I think Josh was the one saying it earlier. He's another one that just because he's 3rd on the depth chart, don't sleep on him. He could be getting a lot of touches right around the end zone, maybe getting some touchdowns that, Jalen Warren's getting the big yards, but Johnson's getting the touchdowns for you. And then finally in Detroit, Khalif Raymond. He's they're now wide receiver 3. He'll be behind Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams. He was known just as a pro punt. He was a Pro Bowl punt returner. Yeah. Pro Bowl punt returner for 2 seasons. But now he's earned that 3rd spot. Again, that's kind of a name you sometimes see and go, yeah, he does. But he could be a sneaky good option for you if you're looking for on a team that we've talked about many times. It was and potentially is going to be explosive offensively. Having him as wide receiver 3, I think you don't want to make that mistake of just letting him slip away.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off you a little bit with the Bill comment. He is. If you drafted him a week ago, you might have overpaid a little bit. But now, if you don't have him, You could trade for him at better value. And also remember, there's been running backs in the past that have been third or fourth on their depth charts. Tyrone Tracy last year was third. He ended up taking the job like a month into the season. James Robinson for Jacksonville took the job over those people there a few years ago. Devin Singletary, I'm pretty sure, did the same thing for the Bills. And then Marlon Mack and the Colts a few years back. So these guys that are buried in the depth chart, it moves fast. If there's an injury or if someone starts playing better with the limited snaps they get, anything could change. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. Guys, we've been on long. We're going to do some bonus footage this week for sure. But that is our week 1 preview. As always, you can follow us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're here on YouTube. We're on Instagram. Just go to @GuysWithoutHelmets. Or as I've been told from some of our listeners, if you want to find us, if you haven't been sent this link directly, type Guys Without Helmets podcast in YouTube, and you're going to have a better chance of finding us. That did come up, because I've had some people reach out that didn't get the direct link and were like, had a hard time finding you. So we'll get that stuff worked out. But guys, great stuff. I think we're getting together at some point to watch some of this stuff. So I can't wait. Caleb, you got me a little excited with this Cowboy upset. You got me.
Don't read into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's we joked about a couple games that were kind of a challenge in terms of maybe not the best games to be watching on week 1, but man, the rest of them make up for it by
There's
far.
plenty of good ones. There's plenty of really good ones.
So I'm excited for a little bonus coverage talking to you guys this week. We'll hop in and get some videos and some stuff out there. But additionally, I can't wait to talk about what we just talked about when we recap the games next week in week 2. So as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Remember, you can find us anywhere at Guys Without Helmets or on YouTube. Type in Guys Without Helmets podcast. And we look forward to talking to you next week.